The Nightmare Before Christmas is considered one of the best stop motion movies ever made, as well as one of the best modern fairy tales put on film. Now, I actually plan on making a couple of videos about this movie at some point, but for today, I just want to give my basic overview of it. Which is to say, I will mostly just be going over how I feel about this movie on the whole. So, somewhat obviously, this will be one of my more opinion-based videos than fact-based ones. So if those aren't really your kind of thing, please feel free to skip over this video. And as to be expected, there will be spoilers for this movie ahead, so if for any reason you don't want anything ruined, then you shouldn't proceed with this video. You have been warned. Alright, so to start off simply, I believe this movie thoroughly deserves its reputation as a modern masterpiece. From Tim Burton's excellent script, to Henry Selick's pitch-perfect direction, to a top of his game Danny Elfman delivering perhaps his greatest musical score to date, this movie excels in every department. Some might even argue that the songs are the real star of the movie, and I wouldn't say that's too far off, as even with 10 songs in an only hour and 15-minute movie, they never once feel intrusive, and there isn't a single bad one of the bunch. They always set the mood perfectly, and I'm pretty sure I've had every single one of them stuck in my head at some point. And on that topic, even the non-musical parts are done perfectly. I mean, Danny Elfman really outdid himself with this. It's honestly no wonder Tim Burton loves working with him. Elfman absolutely nails hauntingly beautiful music, and this is one of his best examples of it. He does a perfect job of merging stereotypical scary Halloween music and classic joyful Christmas music into the perfect arrangement of scary, sad, happy, and optimistic. And I don't think there could have been a better way to do it. Heck, Elfman did such a good job with this that even the music that plays over the credits is done perfectly. But speaking of the merging of Christmas and Halloween, the look of the movie is just as perfect. Halloween Town looks exactly how you'd picture a city centered around the holiday would look, if a little toned down, but given the movie is aimed at kids, that's to be expected. And Christmas Town is also just about as Christmas as you can get, perfectly embodying everything the holiday represents. And to give credit to Henry Selick once again, the stop motion is simply breathtaking. It's so fluid and full of expression and perfectly complements the feel of the film. So if I haven't made it obvious enough already, yes, I think this movie is perfectly scored and shot, both in terms of the actual animation and the design of both the sets and characters. And the same goes for the story itself. I don't know if there's two other holidays that have so many myths, stories, and fairy tales surrounding them as Halloween and Christmas. And yet, I don't know if there's ever been a story that successfully combined the two before this movie. I mean, the spirit of Halloween getting tired of his holiday and deciding to take Santa Claus's place at Christmas only for things not to go the way he'd hoped. And honestly, I think the reason why it works so well is because Jack Skellington is genuinely not malicious. Anybody else would have probably had the main character just be a mindless monster who wants to turn the most wholesome day of the year into an event that'll scare children out of their minds and traumatize them forever. But instead, Jack seriously wants to make kids happy on Christmas, just in his own way. And instead, it's his own limited understanding of the holiday that causes everything to fall apart rather than that be his intention from the start. In other words, I think part of the reason that the movie works so well is because Jack is a nice but misguided man rather than a monster out to destroy Christmas, which you have to admit is a much more tried and true story. But I'll get back to that in a minute. Now, another reason I feel the story works is because it commits to being a fairy tale. This movie feels like it could be an old folklore or myth that has been adapted into a movie. It has this really mystical quality to it that most of those old fairy tales have, feeling at once like it could easily take place in the real world, yet also feel distant and magical at the same time. And it's really rather impressive that Tim Burton, both in his original poem and in the movie, was able to duplicate the feeling of those old fairy tales so well. To put it simply, what's significant about this is that most movies these days don't try to be modern myths anymore, and therefore don't follow the old fairy tale and folklore tropes. Usually, they either try to subvert or reinvent them to varying degrees of success. But one thing they never do is achieve the same feel as those classic stories. But because Tim Burton tried so hard for the story to feel like a fairy tale and to become a modern myth surrounding two of the biggest holidays in America, the result is that it could easily fit in with any classic or Halloween or Christmas story. Simply put, this movie isn't a deconstruction of fairy tales, a commentary on them, or a reinvention. Instead, it simply is one. And if you ask me, that's what helps give it that special feeling so many people have towards it. And finally, there's the characters. And if you ask me, this is another area the movie gets perfectly right. Going back to something I was saying before, what I feel was a major strength of the movie is that the monsters aren't actually bad people, and instead only want to scare people and have obsessions with morbid things in a good natured way. Basically, they're written as the type that would go out of their way to make you really scream, but never to actually hurt you. And this is brilliantly contrasted with Oogie Boogie, who very much intends on hurting people as he is scaring them, which is also why he's the town outcast and hated by all. But for individual characters, there's the brilliantly annoyed and possessive Dr. Finkelstein, the hilarious Mayor, the ingenious Sally, the adorably loyal dog Zero, the perfect villain in the charismatic but deadly Oogie Boogie, and even jolly old St. Nick himself, who's a little more irritable than normal, but given the circumstances, that's kind of understandable. Besides, the ending also brilliantly demonstrates he's just as kind and forgiving as ever. But in my personal opinion, the best thing about this movie lies right in its main character, Jack Skellington. I mean, this man is the king of Halloween, quite possibly the essence of the scariest holiday out there, and yet he's the nicest guy you could meet. As I said before, he has that perfect fairy tale quality of being so relatable he could be your next door neighbor, yet at the same time has an impossibly high and powerful feeling to him that would make you practically want to bow to him and plead for mercy if you actually came across him. But the point is, he's what really makes the movie. He just wants something different and goes about getting it in the wrong way, yet comes across as so likable and genuine that you can't help but root for him regardless. Heck, even Santa, who quite reasonably is very angry with him at first, can't bring himself to stay mad at him because he can see that Jack is a good man who never had any ill intent or meant to cause any problems. And plus, I also like that he doesn't stay in a rut after realizing all the damage he's caused, like in so many other animated movies, and instead, after briefly feeling ashamed, decides to see the best in his situation and simply accepts that there can only be one Sandy Claus. But at the same time, also takes renewed pride in the fact that there can only be one Pumpkin King. And though there are plenty of other scenes with him I could talk about, I think I'll leave it there. But if you're genuinely interested, please feel free to let me know in the comments and I might do a separate video on that. So, simply put, in my opinion, The Nightmare Before Christmas is one of the best animated movies ever made, by virtue of the fact that it gets everything right from the music to the visuals to the story to the characters. It perfectly captures the spirit of fairy tales, and may just be one of the best modern ones out there. Both a Halloween and Christmas movie, it manages to be in a class all by itself, pertaining a very unique and special feel to it even decades after its release. And if there was anything left to add, it's that I'm really glad Tim Burton has been able to talk Disney out of doing a sequel to this movie time and time again, because I'm pretty sure it could never recapture all the components that made it so good in the first place. Alright, that's all I have got for now. So why don't you tell me? Do you think The Nightmare Before Christmas is one of the best animated movies out there? Or do you believe there are others that are way better? Please feel free to tell me in the comments. And remember, if you disagree with me, that's okay. I don't hold anything against you if you don't think as highly of an animated movie as I do. And thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you all next time.